Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Lori Lowell, the Executive Director of Home Haven, and this is a discussion of a recent play called Spunk. And the discussion will be led by Bob Rosenheck, and I'm just going to say a word about Bob before I turn it over to Bob. So he is a relatively new member of Home Haven. He's one of the leaders of the downtown village, and they are very, very active getting out and about to plays and shows and museums and walks and all kinds of lovely things. Bob is also a member of various committees, but most importantly for this discussion, he's a member of the Activities Committee, and this is a Home Haven activity. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob. Oh, and I wanted to mention Bob is a retired psychiatrist at Yale, so if he makes any interesting psychological observations, I think he's qualified to do that. Okay, Bob, thank you. Go
So
ahead.
I should say a word about how this came about. So Zora Neale Hurston is a very well-known name about which I knew very little. So in the activities committee, I said, it really would be interesting to have a chance to discuss the play among those of us who went. Uh, and everybody thought, or a lot of people thought that was a good idea. And following the principle that no good deed goes unpunished, I volunteered for the task, or was given the task of leading the discussion, which I have no official qualifications, even as a Yale psychiatrist, to be leading. However, I enjoyed the task tremendously, and I would suggest if those others of you are interested, there's several YouTubes about Zora Neale Hurston. One is a full-length, public TV biography, which is engrossing, and I'll try to summarize some of it. And the other is an actual interview with her. She died in 1960, and there's a live interview with her, which is really remarkable, puts everything in context. She is a personality and a half, and some of the things that happened to her in her life are much more understandable when you see her uh, live, tremendous personality. So she really is from another era. Uh, she was born in 1891. She was born in Mississippi, but grew up in a all black town in Florida. Actually, there were a handful of all black towns. And this was the first. Her father was the mayor and was also the chief minister. So she probably had a privileged position. Her mother died when she was about 10, and her father remarried, and there was tension there. So she didn't have much opportunity for schooling. Uh, at, at least on Wikipedia says that at the age of 30, she finally went to get some formal education at a high school based at Morgan State, which is a historically black college. Uh, then at 31, evidently after only a year, she went to Howard, but could only stay briefly because there were no funds to pay her tuition. And then again, you understand this when you see her personality. She connected with one of the founding board members of Barnard College, connected to Columbia, and matriculated there at 38. At the age of 38, she regularly lied about her age because she was always much older than the other students there. Uh, and while she was there, she connected with people in the anthropology department at Columbia, um, particularly Franz Boas, who himself was reshaping anthropology, which had been largely based on imperialist armchair scholarship, based on reports from exotic places. And he actually went to New Guinea, was presumably the first or one of the earliest to go and lived in New Guinea for a year, learned the language, and started the idea that anthropology is to understand how the world looks to other people. And he was strongly anti-racist and anti the idea that Europeans were superior to others. Uh, so in that sense, Zora Neale Hurston was a star because she had all the roots in these rural areas of the South. And she was very attracted as part of her scholarly work to going back for long periods of time. But she was going back, and she had cameras to make films. And those of you who saw the production on the curtain in the beginning, those were her films of the
Ah,
South. And there are a number of these in the public television production. Uh, she then connected with a philanthropist named Charlotte Mason, who funded her field work from the ages of 40 to 45. So this is a woman who had spent most of her life in poverty in the rural South, and here in mid to late middle age is funded to do what only she can uniquely do, which is go back to her home community and other communities in the rural South with what she felt was a mission, which to preserve a record of the culture of African Americans in the rural South. The Columbia Department of Anthropology was apparently focused on preserving the culture of Native Americans and was very focused on them. And her angle, which was supported by Franz Boas in many ways, was to be the ethnographer of the African American South. And she collected field recordings, and some of the recordings were of her because she grew up there. So she was a native. Uh, this uh, gave her an ambiguous status within the anthropology world, where she was, on the one hand, an ideal person because she was from the community she was studying. On the other hand, she was not given credit because she didn't have a PhD. And there are a number of remarkable uh, reviews of her proposed grants, which say, she doesn't have the formal education she needs because she doesn't have a PhD. And when you see her in the interview, you can see this is someone who would not have a lot of patience to get a PhD. She did get some funding to, to, to work towards a PhD, but dropped out before that was over. She was involved with the Harlem Renaissance. So on the one hand, she was getting herself educated and was developing a career as an ethnographer, an anthropologist. On the other hand, she was a participant in the Harlem Renaissance, which is uh, an outburst of artistic creativity in the 1920s. And a lot of her works, and I particularly Spunk, is torn between representing an ethnography of the rural South and uh, writing as an artist. And these two are I think deeply intermixed in her life work. She ended up writing 4 novels, one of which I think sold well, many of which were positive, others of which were positively reviewed, but did not make her a lot of money. And she remained poor to the end of her life. She died in a nursing home in 1960, evidently impoverished, was buried in a pauper's grave. Uh, and then there was a revival of interest in her starting in the 1970s, spurred by Alice Walker. Turning to Spunk, so Spunk was the short story Spunk, which is online, it's right here, uh, was written in 1925 and won a prize. Uh, there was a theatrical version of it by George Wolfe that was uh, I think was enacted in 1989. But then in 1997, uh, a number of manuscripts of hers were discovered in the Library of Congress. Evidently, for authors whose plays were not performed, they couldn't get a copyright, but they were able to deposit their work in the Library of Congress. So in 1997, uh, this play was rediscovered, and this is the play which we had at Yale Rep. So um, let me. I found the production uh, thrilling ethnographically as flavor of music and dance, but I wasn't always sure what was going on, I must say, and I'm glad that many of you who are here saw it several times and were able to enlighten us. But there was a plot summary that was available online, and so for those of you who didn't see the play, I'll summarize this version of it. Uh, and Spunk is a punky, good-looking, music-making guitar player, and the central story is about a love triangle. Uh, there's a woman named Lena who's gorgeous and is married to a guy named Jim. And Spunk comes in and decides that he's going to make it with Lena. And there's a whole section where people around town are noticing that he's spending a lot of time in the woods with Lena and what's going on. And this is a humiliation to her husband. Uh, and her husband is humiliated but enraged. And then the end of the first act, he threatens Spunk and then goes to kill him with a razor, knowing that Spunk carries a gun. And Spunk then, after getting cut, shoots him. And the next act opens where Spunk is on a chain gang. Uh, he got only 6 months, and then he got off. And he's complaining that Lena hasn't written him, and then he gets a letter from her in which she says she can't be with him because other people in the community have said there's too much sin involved. He takes off from the chain gang, and the white guard shoots at him but doesn't kill him. And then later he's apparently allowed to rejoin the community because the key industry in the area is a sawmill. And the sawmill is incredibly dangerous. And people who take that job regularly die. And Spunk, with his hunkiness, is up to that challenge. And so he gets that job. Now, what becomes complicated, at least to me, is there then is a whole section of voodoo where the betrayed husband of Lena, there's this whole cat scene of strange faces, which I believe is the hoodoo specialist casting a spell on Spunk. And then at the end, and this is where I could use some help, a casket is brought in, and there seems to be the assumption that this is going to be Spunk, but then it turns out that it's not Spunk. It's the father of the man that he killed who has died, uh, and Spunk goes on to marry Lena. Now, one of the ambiguities is, at least when I saw this with unnamed members of Homehaven, they thought that he had died at the end. And indeed, in the original story, he does die. And in the original story, which I think is more so, Zora Neale Hurston was very interested in voodoo. In the original story, the idea is that the man that he killed will take his revenge in coming back as a ghost. and it's a quite literal description of how the dead man, back as a ghost, pushes Spunk into the saw, and he's killed. Uh, and I'm going to stop there and uh, ask any of you that know, how do you think this ended? And then once, if we can clarify that, what does it mean one way or the other? So
Well,
let me start.
I thought it was so interesting that in fact at the end Spunk survives to be with his sweetheart because at that time almost every young man in the South who had Spunk would often get lynched. And so in this case, it was a reversal of that, which is part of what I liked about the ending.
So your idea is that he survived.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
go
don't know.
ahead,
Can you?
Libby.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's the hodgepodge or whatever his name was, the father of Jim that Spunk killed,
That was
the
Bishop.
the magician conjurer, because
Minister.
he they look they she looks at his face and then it's okay, and I don't know if she says anything, but there's something about the old man was trying to do something to Spunk and he got caught in the logs, and that was that. And then during the voodoo thing, there's one particular where um place where all the spirits they're getting all charged up, and then all of a sudden they kind of make a lurch towards the conjurer and he drops back a little bit, and I thought afterwards, oh, so they turned him. I don't know why, maybe because they didn't like him, and so they took him instead of Spunk. Do I make sense?
As much as
You're
the play does.
terribly.
Let's hear other
Yeah.
responses. Or
I thought the same thing, but then I was sitting next to Libby when I saw the show.
I
Would
was
you thought some?
surprised. I was surprised by the ending because I sort of thought in the normal genre of stories like this, Spunk would have died. I mean,
Yes.
that's, kind of what, and as you said, Bob, it was refreshing that he didn't. But I sort of assumed he was going to die.
Yeah.
But then my interpretation of what I saw in the play was that it was the grandfather or the minister boogeyman that had died. And I wasn't sure that I felt that was the proper ending because I've probably been programmed to think that the other ending should be what it was. But yeah, the whole voodoo scenes were quite quite elaborately staged. I mean, I was really impressed with the whole staging of the production. It always amazes me what they can do on a flat, horizontal wooden floor to make things come alive and how they can change. There wasn't so much changing of scenery with this, but then the whole video voodoo was really quite impressive.
I think it's a good thing to know that it wasn't referred to as voodoo so much at the period as it was the conjure. The conjure man was the one who cast the spells.
Okay. What's the difference, Trish?
One is native to our country, the other is native to Africa.
Okay.
and Haiti.
Voodoo is a religion, but this wasn't exactly a religion. This was just the local witch doctor.
I thought he
Right.
was a minister also, though.
Well,
No.
it sounded like that.
I don't think so. I
That
think the surname of both Jim and his father happened to be Bishop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was very
yeah.
confused for a lot of the play trying to figure out because the father's first name was Hodge, and to me that almost sounded like Archbishop, Hodge Bishop. and coming from the
Oh.
Northeast. And so it was easy to try to find a religious angle, but I don't, I mean, it might have been intentional to name the character with those last names, but
So
I'm
there
not sure
was
there was ever anything that explicitly indicated that it was the minister.
So there was a review in the Times, uh, which gave a little more background, in which I've also read someplace else, that Zora Neale Hurston deliberately wanted to have it have a happier ending. That her original story was about the magical world of the conjurer, where there was the real life love triangle, and then there was the whole conjure struggle afterwards. Uh, and this happened, they described this in some of her other things, which the publishers thought they were too grim, and they cut, and there was some sections where she was very critical of racism in America, and the publishers wanted to take that out, uh, and she was happy to let it be taken out in the hopes that it would boost sales, because this was her source of income.
That
Well,
taken out of
I
the
have a
play
comment.
or out of one of her books? What was it taken out of?
I I don't think this story was. I think
It
this
was
story
based on a short story.
It was a short story.
in a
No, I
magazine.
mean you said that the publisher wanted her to take something out. I'm asking you if she was asked to take something out of Spunk.
No,
Oh, it
that
was
was
something
her
else.
decision
Okay.
to give it a happy ending. There isn't any particular explanation of why she wanted to have it a happy ending, but there are other instances where uh, she changed things for the sake of marketability.
Well, it was actually funnier the way it turned out.
I have something to say about the ending. I want to talk about the ending for just a minute before you guys get too far along in your belief that it was a happy ending. I was and am 100% convinced that he died at the end. Remember, he even said some of his closing remarks were as he was dying that he felt that somebody had pushed him. And some of the ensemble also echoed that theme, the hint being that it was the someone coming back from the dead who had pushed him under the sawmill. And in the end, Lena was over on the other side of the stage in her cabin singing a lament for his death. And the song that Ruby sang at the very end, I looked up the name of it, and it's called Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. And it's a hymn that's commonly used at the time of death. So I was sold on the idea that he was gone. No? Well,
No, I
there you
mean,
go.
I don't leaning on the everlasting arms. I don't associate that with the funeral song.
Ah,
It's just
just a
spiritual.
hymn.
It's commonly sung in black churches.
Oh, well, then that's not, I was wrong about
I've never heard it sung at funerals. I mean,
really.
maybe, but not in a way that I would have noticed it.
I'll have to, I read somewhere, something gave me that idea, Marilyn, but it was just an example that they'd used. So
Okay. Well,
I'm
just
probably
from
wrong.
personal experience, I know the song well, and I mean, it's just sung like a hymn in a church service.
Okay. But I still think just
Yeah.
the staging of that scene of her standing alone with the ensemble behind her and her singing that song and Lena over on the other side of the stage just sort of reinforced my understanding that he was dead. But there you are.
But there would,
Downtown Village stands for the principle that everybody's opinion counts.
You.
One of the thing many things I liked about the play was the way that her ethnography showed up in the sense of knowing all that stuff about the toe dance and croquet and the card game of spit and all those kind of things and those circle dances. Those were all I thought so wonderful and reflected her ethnographic research.
I love the toe dance. I thought that
I
was
do.
really
That was great.
was
She was,
anybody else?
I just wanted to add to what Bob said. She was, I've read that she was very active in trying to develop a Black theater, an African American theater, along with a group of other people. And it didn't highly succeed, but all of those things that she had in the play were what
we could have seen a lot more of had there been Black theater that we knew about and that we could attend.
Mhm.
And even the way they spoke in the play, their language and the ensemble productions, striking whatever they were striking in unison, along with all the games and so forth. It definitely was a kind of theater that was common to Black culture.
Yeah. But it seems to have gotten incredibly good reviews all around. Does anybody know where it's going from here? Has there been any indication of it's being picked up by some other?
I can't believe it won't
Not yet.
because it'll eventually has to get to New York. I'm sure it will.
Hope so.
Yeah.
I wonder what George Wolfe's production was like in 1989.
Hmm.
He was quite a well-known director.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I have a question about the ending. I just saw the play a few days ago, Saturday night. In fact, the same night that Bob Sandine was there, right, Bob? You said
Yeah.
you saw it?
I think we were Friday. Went on Friday.
Well, I went on Saturday night. It was the last show, and
And the understudy played the lead, and I thought she was fabulous.
yeah. So here's my question though. I thought, and maybe I'm remembering wrong, I thought that we saw Spunk walk in after the body had been carried out. Didn't we
We did.
see him come
We
in?
did.
Yeah, we
So,
did.
so he did survive. And I think they came back
Yeah.
together. He and Evelina were arm in arm again. And I
But
think that's
that body wasn't him. That body was Evelina's father-in-law.
right. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying, I'm
He
saying
didn't die. He died after that.
Well, he was killed.
Maybe not.
We all die
Off
after that.
stage.
Whatever.
I don't think he died in the play.
Yeah, I
Well,
agree.
So
I
Who
won't
was
voted on that
lady?
topic, I guess.
It looked to me like he and Lena were quite happy, and Ruby was,
Oh, Ruby was
confronted
sad.
with.
Yeah.
She was sad, and she
I
was
thought
the solo person with the ensemble behind
we
her.
were seeing the good side of Conjure. It was the good side of Conjure that saved Stump from being killed.
Hmm.
Or it was the author's second thought. I mean, she really wanted that play to get produced. It didn't, but perhaps the happy ending made her think it was more likely to be produced. So,
I had thought it was happy, but Kay made me rethink it. I think it was ambiguous. You didn't know who the body was, and then you saw him come in, so he wasn't the body, and he said they got killed, they got pushed, but
they
that
said
was him, and if
They
he was,
said who the body was.
The
Yeah,
body.
Lena said who it was when she lifted the
she did,
she
okay,
lifted the
independently
sheet,
of
and she
him.
said, "No, that's old man Bishop,"
Yeah.
something like that.
That's
And-
what I
All right, so
remember.
they all would have had to have died.
And the body had Bishop's hat. We could see the hat.
Yeah.
oh, could you? We were way over on the right. We didn't see the hat. I didn't.
I was in the first row. I could see it well.
Yeah.
That's how you got the
Didn't even
ticket,
hear
Bob.
Can I
So-
just raise the
Did it-
topic of the music? Because the fantastic thing about this production, from my point of view, was when they found it in the Library of Congress, there was no music. It had the names of
Yeah.
some songs. It had some musical go here. And so there was a process that, as far as I could tell, took about 4 years of active work to research all the songs that were written by other people that were in existence, like the one that it started out with, the
Word
Sinner's
song.
one.
Yeah.
But it was giving
And,
it
no,
program to the guy that composed the music.
right. But it's also important that from the ethnographic point of view, there's all the research that she did during her life and that she documented was an incredibly valuable resource in providing some leads on at least some of the music and helping that incredibly talented crew of people who put this production together
Incredible.
to make it so that the music was just completely
It was
engaging and engrossing, and it was just wonderful. The music and the
Yeah.
dancing
It was
And what
perfect.
And what a stroke of luck that the person who found it in the Library of Congress box knew, one of the dramaturgs at Yale, because what a perfect place to send it.
Oh,
Oh, did anyone have any moral qualms about him Spunk getting away with it?
With what? With the
With
murder?
what?
Some of you seem to be cheery about the fact that he survived. On the other hand, he did steal another man's woman and killed
And he
him.
killed somebody.
Self-defense.
Right.
But
Self-defense.
self-defense.
I thought it was really interesting.
But that's part of the irony. Part of the irony of the story is the fact he got 90 days for owning a gun illegally, but nobody cared that he killed another black man.
That's not
But
irony,
he
that's
was just,
racism.
Yeah.
There you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
But I think what was striking to me about it was the ways in which she sort of matter-of-factly brings out some of the racism that were part of people's everyday lives.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that was striking was how they valued Spunk actually went to prison for owning a firearm, not for killing
Right.
another black person.
Right.
And they valued him because of his skill at the mill.
His what?
His skill that he could actually run this saw
Right.
that was making money. And so he was, he was protected in a lot of ways, or given favor in a lot of ways because he was financially valuable.
And
Right.
didn't the white man who was sort of the boss of the group, didn't he have a special liking for Spunk?
Yeah.
yeah.
The prison guard did.
Maybe it was the prison guard, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to hit him when he was shooting at him.
Hmm.
He was
Well,
trying to appear that he had shot at him.
Right.
Libby's hand is up.
I'm trying to say, I thought the chain gang thing was really obviously rigged, and she had to do that because all the others were chained, but Spunk wasn't. And the guard was giving him cigarettes and privileges. And when he escaped, I wondered if the guard was shooting at him or shooting to miss because Spunk had to escape. And if he'd been in a real chain gang, he wouldn't have been able to.
Well, they identified him as the trustee.
I know, but it was really unbelievable, that part.
What do you mean,
I thought-
I mean, the whole
I thought it was in
But it was
character
all-
with Spunk. He came into the
Six
village
shocking.
and won people over. He was
Was it-
happy-go-lucky. He was musical. He was good to look at. And that's what happened with the chain gang, too. He weaseled, not at all. I don't think it was weaseling. I just think it was his personality that he became a friend, that he probably helped the guard keep the other members of the chain gang in line. Maybe he would tell the guard if something was, causing trouble. But I just thought it was consistent with his personality that he was able to get out of the chain gang.
He charmed him with
for
everyone.
plot.
Did shoot to miss. I heard the play say that at some point.
Did they?
I thought that the guard shot on purpose to miss him when he escaped.
Yeah.
I agree.
I thought that too. That was what Libby said, yeah.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
So I think he's a kind of a Paul Bunyan type mythic figure
Yes.
who has kind of a magic about him,
Yeah.
that he rises above circumstances.
Yeah.
Which seems also to be on the life of Zora Neale Hurston, at least at the end.
I have a question. I did not see the play. I'm sorry that I couldn't. And I read the short story. And the short story has the characteristic that's kind of interesting, which is that the narrator of the short story uses incredibly formal language. She talks about the men talking among themselves as badinage, and I could give you a lot of examples of it. So the narrator is watching them in a very clear sense, in a superior way. They don't talk the way she does. She is not identified. And I wonder whether or not that came through in any way in the production, any sense of it being produced. You said something about what she thought about it, but I'm curious.
I would
Well,
say
we
no,
were
but
the
that's an
we
interesting observation, particularly in light of the tension between her as a writer of fiction and her as an anthropologist.
Right, right.
That she,
Yeah.
that may be where some of that balance is.
And it's very clear that only when it's not, quote, it starts off, a giant of a brown-skinned man sauntered up the one street of the village and out into the palmetto thickets with a small, pretty woman clinging lovingly to his arm. And then Lige says something, and then again, not as anybody's spoken words, all the loungers in the store tried to walk to the door with an air of nonchalance, but with small success. Nobody in that story is going to use the word nonchalance.
So
And
Harriet,
so it's interesting. Well,
it is because I think that version of it is much more about conjuring. Although it has that narrator, the end and the middle is all about the invincible power of conjuring. Whereas in the play we saw, I thought it was more about Spunk as a special person.
Does the black bobcat exist in the play?
The cats.
There are cats in the
The
play.
cat, yeah.
Yeah. And on the subject of trees and sceneries, I will mention, as someone I was leaving with also mentioned, they got the magnolias wrong in the second act.
They're never pink.
So in the first act, the magnolia in his hat, that's a southern magnolia. But those were tulip trees. Those are New England. It's a version of a magnolia, but in the South, those would have been creamy white in the area that they were supposedly doing this play from.
Well, I think in the story, if that had come up in the short story, the narrator would have known that, and the
Well, they
people.
got it right in the first act with
Yeah.
with the flower in his hat.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I didn't even ask her, where in the South are you from? I just knew, right?
The question I have that I'd love to get people's reaction to is I could not quite understand why Ruby was so important to the play. She was obviously a really important factor, but I couldn't quite figure out why she was so prominent.
Conflict and tension.
What?
well,
I said conflict and tension.
Yeah,
So she added drama.
she was always kind of she was the connective tissue. She when Lena is grieving, she elicits conversation. She by reaching out to Lena, she gets her to tell what's on her mind. She's just a little dramatic connecting piece, I think, and she shows Spunk's power over women, and she adds a little juice when she's jealous, when she's dropped so immediately. I just think she makes things move. She greases the wheels. She makes things move more slowly. And I think in terms of a narrative, we, the audience, fill that role. We don't have to be told things the way a narrator has to tell them. We see Spunk and Ruby sauntering through the whatever it is, the ryegrass or the palmetto or whatever, when they first appear. That whole spectator role is taken by us, the spectators in the audience.
Well, in the first or the beginning part of the play, the triangle is with Leela and her husband. And so once he is dead, there's no more triangle, except we now have the triangle between the two women and Spunk. So maybe that just keeps that, as somebody said, the conflict. You know, there's still conflict there.
Yeah. You don't have to have soliloquies exactly.
Yeah. I had just finished reading the book James, and I kept thinking about that book as I was watching the play. You know, the importance of music, the how you would go. And Harriet, when you mentioned the different languages, I was thinking, yeah, that happened in James. You know, there were two different languages, and I hadn't noticed that in the play. But I kept thinking about James when I was watching the play, and actually happy that I happened to have done them both at the same time.
James forces the acknowledgement on us, whereas what I'm pointing out, I don't think that it's a big deal in the book. You have to notice it. I'm sorry, in the short story. But once you notice it, it's definitely there, I think.
There was a whole series of Black writers a few years older than Zora Neale Hurston. Charles W. Chestnut was one man, a man of color, who wrote a number of novels in which Black people were heroes and heroines. He was giving them a description, sometimes in language that you would identify with whites more than you would with Blacks who had not had a chance for education. And he was painting a different picture than those with superior attitudes as white people saw the Black people.
Have many of you gone to multiple Yale Rep productions over the last couple of years?
Yes.
Yeah.
A couple.
This one stood out. I mean, I was almost not going to subscribe to my my plays this year because I just wasn't all that excited about what I had seen recently. But this was a big production.
Every now
Well,
they
I
pull
thought
something off.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, Bob.
I've gone to it ever since Brustein started it way back when, and I still like what it does.
Well, it's uneven, but when they're good, they're very, very good.
Yeah.
And even when they're not so great, there's always something interesting. One person or one way of looking at something.
Yeah, it's connected to a university. They should sometimes try things that don't work. That's part of what universities should be doing.
Yeah. Good point.
Bob, the problem with our theater, our Yale Rep group, is that we have dinner before the play. We never have a chance to talk about the play.
I know.
That's one problem.
Well, this is all about.
That's right. I really enjoyed this. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Rose.
Thank you for taking the challenge and can you send us the links that you found, Bob?
Yeah.
Or send them to Laura and she can send them out.
Yeah.
I have a question. I know a lot of you are much more knowledgeable than I am about everything like literature and literature and sociology and all of that, ethnology. Is it possible that she wrote a love story, but really her message is the social commentary on the workplace, the chain gang, the, all of these things that we've touched upon in our conversation, noticing the interaction between the Black workers and their that man controlling them, or the chain gang and the warden or whatever he is controlling them. I mean, it just seems to me that those themes are very strong in the story, and I wonder if that's her real message. And the love story, weaves its way around, but she's also showing you like the strength of this community, the strong ties, the relationships, the way people have each other's back. It's a community.
Village.
It's a village. It has integrity.
She definitely wants to show that.
She definitely wants to show that. And so I guess what I'm wondering is, would is that the I guess this goes back to what Bob was sharing about her life and what she was interested in, and the Black Renaissance, and her connections with all of these amazing people in Harlem and all of that. So I don't know, like what do people think?
Oh, one of the things pertains to your point is when they show them uh, building the tracks, working on the tracks. Now, I don't think that's a chain gang. I think that's
Yeah,
a
No,
work
that's the
crew.
track.
Yeah, work crew. Yeah.
And what's striking is
Working.
how self-organizing they are with the music. So the overseer is there, but they do this in their way with music. They make the moving of the tracks a musical, a dance.
It's like sea shanties.
I
The
used
Yeah.
to,
They do
Yeah,
the
it's
same thing rhythmically.
I used to do that on the
you
railroad
said
when I was a kid, and they even call those people gandy dancers. It's a
Yeah.
nickname for people who work on the railroad like that. I'd like to make one other recommendation to this group who likes good books, and that is, I just finished the Mammoth book by Magruder called "The Play's the Thing." It's a detailed history of the whole history of the Yale Rep, and it's really well done. Recommend it highly.
Mm.
I wanted to comment on Lori's comment. Lori, I think you're absolutely right. I don't know if there's any one thing that the play is really about, but I thought that her depiction of the strong sense of community, the things that you all are saying about people looking after each other, the resilience, the determination to be happy and have a good time, regardless of what other evils might befall you. I thought that those things were the things that just came out throughout the event. It was wonderful the way she handled that. So thanks for making that comment.
Hmm.
I mean, a lot of that was in the production, as someone was saying earlier. A lot of this is not specified. So all the hoodoo cat scene or the conjure cat scene, all the Times review made a point that she just has one line in the text where she
She
says
didn't actually write.
conjure scene or something like that, and leaves it up to the director to imagine it.
Hmm.
I don't think the dramaturg's notes in the program caught up that much about the actual historical 20s and attitudes in the Harlem Renaissance.
No, the dramaturge has, I think it's the dramaturge that has one article in the program about comedy, about making the point about the fact that the play is a comedy and how it accomplished that. And I think that's true. But yeah, the dramaturge missed quite a bit. It
But the
seems.
definition that the dramaturg gave of what makes something a comedy is that it's about the community.
Yes,
So
that's
that
right.
was what was coming to mind for me as Lori was making her comment.
Right.
I think it's also important to put that in the context of the time. So, to go back to what Lori was saying, I mean, this was in the 1930s when um, societies were completely segregated from one another. So, where you always knew what was going on in the white community because you had to. White people had absolutely no idea what was going on in Black communities or that they even existed um, in that kind of way. And so I think part of what she was doing was showing this community and this culture that was operating completely out of mainstream view. Um, and that also comes out in not in the play so much, but in one of the links that we got was to a PBS biography on Zora Neale Hurston. And that talks about her growing up and the struggles that she had. Actually, she faced a lot of sexism and racism in academia at that time because they were willing to accept her up to a point, but they didn't. They both told her she needed the PhD, but then some of her key supporters did not support her getting one.
Huh.
And so they made that more difficult. She did actually um, she dropped 10 years off her age so she could go to high school. And she never added it back. Right? So,
Never what?
right,
Never added it
exactly.
back.
So she dropped 10 years to be, I think, 16 or 18 or whatever, so she could get a free public school education because that was so important to her. But it's really fascinating to see the biography. It talks about her close friendship with Langston Hughes, and but it also talks a lot about the tensions during that time and that sort of that balancing between telling your story the way you want to tell it and having to satisfy white benefactors who had their own agendas about what they wanted to put forward. So there's a lot about her relationship with the person she refers to as godmother. Um, and there's also, and this again is in the PBS biography, it really brings out the state of anthropology at that time and how what she was criticized for actually is what the majority is accepted practice among anthropologists today. And that is to be among the people that you are studying and, and participate because they talk about how nobody could get the stories and nobody could, and that's what actually Zora Neale was most known for was her collections of folklore.
Yes.
A lot of oral stories that had only been oral tradition. But it was, and they talk about how she first goes in after her, Barnard education, and she asks you know, the professorial kinds of questions, and people tell her, "We don't know what you're talking about. Maybe that's over in the next town. Go over there." And nobody would talk to her until she came back and actually began to,
Mm.
sing and dance and learn the songs and participate as part of the community. Then they started to trust her.
Mm.
And then they started to tell the stories to her.
Fabulous.
The Beinecke Library had an open house on Sunday, and they showed some of the letters and papers of Zora Neale Hurston that are at the Beinecke.
Mm.
And I'm hoping that even though that was a one-day event, that it would still be possible for us to go there and read some of the papers and see some of the materials that the Beinecke has of Zora Neale Hurston.
Did you go, Trish?
I
Were
have
you a
didn't get there Sunday, so I haven't.
Yeah, I know. It was like 3 hour window. Was
Yeah.
anyone able to go?
No.
I hope they do
Well,
it again.
interesting point in view of the comment that what this was about was showing the unknown Black community to the white community who would be going to the theater, is she publicly was critical of the Supreme Court decision against segregated schools in 1954 because she said putting Black kids and white kids together isn't going to help anybody. She thought perfectly fine. Make it equal, but fine for the black education to be separate.
Interesting.
And in the later thing, she declares that she's a Republican.
Interesting.
Well.
Republican in those days. Yeah.
It's a different thing.
I'm wondering,
Yeah, that would have been different.
I'm wondering
And
if
Bob,
anybody- go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
Okay, on your comment, I've been thinking here. She wrote this, well, she wrote the story with which the play is based on. Okay, so maybe that makes a difference. I was thinking that if we're talking about she was trying to sell her work because this was a source of income for her. So she had to make the story positive and light and entertaining for the mass media, not just for the blacks, but maybe her way of introducing the racism and the difficulties that Black people had even surviving during that time was sort of a subset to the play. So the play was light and dancing and music, and the people who had the money could pay for it and would go to it. But then there was this underlying, but things are really not all that great, in this community. I don't know, just an idea that came to me.
It certainly must have been a tricky thing, and now she wrote the play. So the story was for the New Negro, an interpretation in 1925, which would have been a Harlem Renaissance journal. But the play would have been for whoever goes to plays, which would have been a very different audience, I think.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we have anybody in Home Haven with a really strong connection to the Beinecke who could maybe get us a Home Haven, like a
tour. I'll make an inquiry.
Like a tour, yeah, like maybe with a docent and a tour,
I'll
and
make an inquiry to find out.
you will, Trish, that would be great. And
Mike Moran probably would.
Yeah, Michael Moran would be a good resource.
And he'd probably be very happy to accommodate us. So who can reach out to Michael?
I will do that.
Oh, Trish, great, thank you. And Trish is very active on the activities committee, which meets next week. So if we can get that going, we'll let the entire organization know. There's no way to share it just with this group of 25, but please keep your eyes open, because if we can get something arranged in the next month or two, that would be interesting. A nice follow-up.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 3:00. So thanks all for joining. It was a great discussion.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Bob.
Thanks for
Thank
doing
you.
that.
Intro.
Thank you, Lori.
Excellent intro. Thank you.
And we'll try to send you some links to the various things that have been discussed.
Good. Yeah, Bob, send them to Kate and she'll get them out. Okay.
And Bob's giving another presentation next week.
Oh, yes, next week, presentation on loneliness. By then you'll have the November newsletter, so you can read the article that he's written, and then there'll be a discussion, and he'll be presenting. So it's about isolation and
Monday.
loneliness and all that good stuff.
Or bad
Okay,
stuff.
everybody,
Thank you.
see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.